The text arrived at 2:47 on a Friday afternoon while I was reviewing the final seating chart for our annual gala. 700 guests, 40 corporate sponsors, 2 governors, 3 senators, and the lieutenant governor all confirmed, all committed to an evening that would change lives. My phone buzzed against the polished mahogany of my desk. I glanced down, expecting another confirmation from our events team. Instead, I saw my father's name. Don't come to the family reunion tomorrow. Maria's boyfriend is State Senator Richard Brennan. We need to impress him. Your nonprofit work would just complicate things. Hope you understand. Dottie read it once, twice, 3 times, waiting for the words to rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Complicate things. My nonprofit work would complicate things. I set down my pen very carefully, the way you might set down something fragile that you're afraid you'll break or throw. For a moment, I just sat there in my corner office on the 15th floor, looking out over the city I'd spent 12 years serving. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold, and somewhere below, families were going about their lives, unaware that there were people working to make sure their children could get the healthcare they needed. People like me, people my own family thought would be an embarrassment. I picked up my phone again and typed a single word. Okay. Then I set it down and returned to my seating chart, because there was work to do, and I'd learned a long time ago that the work mattered more than the recognition. What my family didn't know, what they'd never bothered to ask, was that Senator Richard Brennan wasn't just my sister's boyfriend. He was the keynote speaker at my gala, the same night, the same venue, sitting at my table. If this story is speaking to your heart, please take a moment to share it. Your support helps me continue bringing these stories to life. And stay with me, because what comes next will show you that sometimes the quietest voices carry the most power. Growing up as the middle child in the Torres family meant existing in a space between notice and invisibility. My older sister Maria was the beauty, homecoming queen, sorority president, the kind of daughter who could walk into a room and make everyone stop talking. She'd married wealth at 23, divorced at 25, and was now dating a state senator at 28. Every transition was an event, every life choice a headline in our family's ongoing story. My younger brother Carlos was the athlete. Full ride to USC, minor league baseball, then a smooth transition to sports commentary for the local news. He had charisma that lit up television screens, the kind of natural confidence that made cameras love him. And then there was me. Sophia's more of a thinker, my mother would say at family gatherings, her tone suggesting she was describing a reliable appliance. Useful, perhaps. Necessary, maybe. But not particularly exciting. When I told them at 16 that I wanted to work in nonprofit advocacy, my father actually laughed. Honey, those jobs don't pay anything, he'd said, shaking his head. You need to be practical. Maybe teaching, good benefits, summers off, or marry well, Maria had added, examining her perfectly manicured nails. That's always an option. I stopped sharing my dreams after that. Instead, I tucked them away like seeds in winter soil, waiting for the right time to let them grow where no one could step on them before they had roots. At 18, I started volunteering at Children's Memorial Hospital, just a few hours a week between classes at community college, reading to kids in the oncology ward, playing games, helping families navigate the impossible maze of medical bureaucracy that threatened to swallow them whole. One day, a mother grabbed my hand in the hallway. She was thin, exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from months of sleeping in hospital chairs and making impossible decisions. You saved us, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. We were about to lose our house paying for treatment. You found us that fund. You didn't give up when everyone else did. Her hand was shaking in mine. Thank you, she said. Thank you for seeing us. That was the moment I knew. Not the moment I decided, the moment I knew with absolute certainty what my life's work would be. I transferred to State University, declared a double major in public policy and social work, worked 3 jobs to pay for it because my father had said, "We already helped Maria with college. Carlos has his athletic scholarship. You'll figure it out." So I figured it out. Waited tables on weekends, Worked the university library overnight shifts, tutored students in economics. Lived on instant ramen and determination. Slept 4 hours a night. Graduated with honors at 22. Got hired at a small children's advocacy nonprofit making $31,000 a year. My family congratulated me the way you might congratulate someone on a participation trophy. That's nice. Mija, my mother had said at Sunday dinner, her attention already drifting back to Maria's wedding plans. But when are you going to get a real career? Maria, who was in the middle of planning her second wedding at the time, patted my hand with the condescension of someone who'd never worried about money. It's sweet that you want to help people, she'd said, but you also need to think about your future, about stability. I smiled and said nothing, because what they didn't see, what they never asked to see, was the strategic plan I'd been developing in those early morning hours after my overnight library shifts. I'd mapped the gaps in children's healthcare advocacy in our state, identified funding opportunities nobody was pursuing, researched policy changes that could save thousands of families from bankruptcy while their children fought for their lives. I'd found something worth building, and I was going to build it whether anyone was watching or not. At T23, I founded my own organization, Children's Healthcare Advocacy Network. Chan started with a $50,000 grant I'd written myself, working midnight to 4 a.m. for 6 weeks straight while maintaining my day job. Lived in a studio apartment with second-hand furniture. Drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a passenger door that stuck. Ate pasta for nights a week. Reinvested everything. Every dollar that didn't go to keeping me alive went back into the organization. Into hiring staff, into serving families, into building something that would last. My family never asked about it. At Sunday dinners, they talked about Maria's new boyfriend, a lawyer who drove a Porsche. They discussed Carlos's rising profile as a sports commentator, the recognition he was getting, the doors that were opening. When conversation turned to me, it was always the same. Still at that children's charity? My mother would ask, already reaching for her phone to show Maria something on Instagram. That's nice, my father would add, not looking up from his plate. Very nice. By 25, Chan had 15 employees and a $2.3 million operating budget. We'd helped 847 families navigate medical debt. We'd changed 3 state policies around pediatric care coverage. We'd built partnerships with every major hospital in the state. I moved to a better apartment, but kept it modest. Still drove the Honda, though I'd finally gotten the passenger door fixed. The only luxury was my wardrobe. I'd learned early that looking successful helped secure donors, that showing up to meetings with philanthropists and corporate executives in discount store clothes sent a message about your organization's credibility. Fair or not. So I invested in quality suits, in professional styling, in the appearance of someone who ran a serious operation, because I did. At Sunday dinner, Maria noticed my new blazer. Finally shopping somewhere nice, she'd said, fingering the fabric. Did you get a raise at the charity? Something like that, I'd replied. Good for you. My father had added, barely glancing up from his phone. Maybe you can finally afford to buy a house. What he didn't know, I'd just purchased a modest townhouse. Paid cash, no mortgage. But I didn't mention it. What was the point? They weren't asking because they cared about my life. They were asking because it was the polite thing to do. The box you checked before moving on to topics that actually interested you. I'd become an expert at recognizing the difference. By 27, Chan's operating budget was $8.7 million. We had 43 employees across 5 regional offices. We'd helped over 3,200 families. Our policy advocacy had resulted in $43 million in additional state funding for children's health care programs. I was invited to speak at national conferences, testified before state legislative committees, built relationships with every major political figure in the state who cared about children's issues, including State Senator Richard Brennan. Senator Brennan and I had worked together on 3 major pieces of legislation over the past 3 years. He'd been instrumental in passing the Children's Medical Debt Relief Act, a bill I'd written that helped families discharge medical debt through a state hardship fund. We'd had coffee probably 15 times, strategy sessions, fundraiser planning, policy discussions. He knew me as Sophia Torres, executive director of Chan. I knew him as a genuinely decent politician who actually cared about policy over politics, who read the research, who asked hard questions, who showed up when his office called 6 months ago about keynoting our annual gala. I'd been thrilled. The Children's Hospital Gala was our biggest fundraiser. Last year, we'd raised $4.2 million in one night. This year, we were aiming for $6 million. The guest list included the lieutenant governor, 2 other state senators, the mayor, dozens of corporate executives, philanthropists, and community leaders who'd championed our work. The seating chart alone had taken 3 weeks to finalize. A delicate dance of egos and influence and strategic positioning. Senator Brennan was at the head table with me. The lieutenant governor, our board chair, and 2 major donors, whose combined wealth could fund our operations for 3 years. What I didn't know until yesterday was that Senator Brennan was also dating my sister Maria. The text from my father came while I was doing final gala preparations, confirming centerpieces and sound systems and the 1,000 small details that made an event like this work. Don't come to the family reunion tomorrow. Maria's boyfriend is State Senator Richard Brennan. We need to impress him. Your nonprofit work would just complicate things. I called my assistant director, James, into my office. What time is Senator Brennan arriving tonight? I asked, my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath my skin. 6:30. He wanted to arrive early to review his speech with you and meet some of the major donors. Perfect. I paused, choosing my words carefully. James, hypothetically, if you found out your family was having a reunion at the same venue as our gala, what would you do? James looked up from his tablet, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to pure delight. Depends, he said slowly. Are they terrible people or just oblivious? Oblivious, mostly. Then I'd let the universe handle it. He paused, his grin widening. Wait, your family reunion is here tonight? Apparently, in the small ballroom. And Senator Brennan is. He started laughing, a sound of genuine joy. Oh, this is beautiful. Your sister is dating our keynote speaker? Seems that way. Are you going to tell them? I thought about 12 years of dismissal. 12 years of that's nice, Mija. 12 years of being the forgettable middle child with the little charity job. No, I said quietly. I don't think I will. I arrived at the country club at 5 p.m. The grand ballroom looked perfect. Round tables draped with floor-length ivory linens, centerpieces of white roses and blue hydrangeas, chintz colors. Soft lighting that made everything glow like we were inside a pearl. The stage was set with our logo projected behind the podium. Our mission statement visible to everyone who entered. Every child deserves access to quality health care, regardless of their family's financial situation. The small ballroom next door where my family's reunion was happening was decorated with colorful balloons and a banner reading, Torres Family Reunion 2024. I could hear music and laughter filtering through the walls. They sounded happy. I checked in with our event coordinator, confirmed the photographers' positions, reviewed the program one final time. Everything was in place. At 5:45, I changed into my gown in the small office the country club had provided, midnight blue, floor length, with a subtle shimmer that caught the light. It had cost more than my first car, and I'd agonized over the purchase for weeks before my board chair had said, Sophia, you represent an organization with a $9 million budget. Dress like it. She'd been right. Tonight mattered. Appearance mattered. Presence mattered. At 6:15, I was in the lobby greeting early arrivals when I heard familiar voices. This place is gorgeous, my mother's voice carried across the marble floors. I can't believe Maria's boyfriend is a state senator. Just be cool, Mom, Maria said, her voice tight with nerves. Act natural. Don't embarrass me. When do we embarrass you? My father sounded hurt. I stepped back into the grand ballroom before they could see me, my heart pounding with something I couldn't quite name. At 6:30, Senator Brennan arrived, tall, distinguished, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that somehow made him look both powerful and approachable. He'd been in politics long enough to master that balance. Sophia. He greeted me with a warm handshake and genuine smile. The place looks incredible. You've really outdone yourself. Thank you, Senator. We're projecting 6.2 million tonight, possibly more. That's remarkable. He loosened his tie slightly, a rare gesture of nerves. I have to tell you, I'm a bit anxious. This is a bigger crowd than most of my campaign events. You'll be wonderful, I assured him. You always are. I gestured toward the head table, visible through the ballroom doors. You're at table 1 with me, Lieutenant Governor Chen, our board chair Patricia Morrison, and donors Michael and Susan Rothschild. All good people. Very supportive of children's health care. Perfect. He glanced at his watch. Though I should mention I'm bringing a guest. My girlfriend. I hope that's okay. I cleared it with your office last week, of course. We have her seated next to you. Great. She's actually around here somewhere with her family. They're having some kind of reunion in the other ballroom. He checked his phone. I should go find her. Bring her in for introductions before things start. Take your time, I said smoothly, my voice betraying nothing. We don't start seating until 7. He headed toward the lobby. I took a deep breath, steadied myself against the wave of anticipation and dread, and went to check on the kitchen staff. At T6:55. The event coordinator gave me the 5-minute warning. At T6:57. I took my place at the head table, smoothing my gown, checking my notes one final time. At T6:59. The doors opened for final seating, and at exactly 7 p.m., Senator Richard Brennan entered the grand ballroom with my sister Maria on his arm. She looked beautiful. Of course she did. Maria always looked beautiful. Red dress that hugged her figure perfectly. Hair swept up in an elegant twist. Diamonds at her throat that probably cost more than my entire year's salary when I'd first started Chan. They approached the head table together. Senator Brennan's hand at the small of her back. Maria's practiced smile in place as she took in the opulence of the room. The coordinator checked their names, confirmed their seats, gestured toward the table. Senator Brennan pulled out Maria's chair with the automatic courtesy of a man raised to do such things. Started to sit down himself. Then he saw the place card to his left. Sophia Torres, Executive Director. Johnny watched a moment, understanding hit him. His face went absolutely white. His hand froze on the back of his chair. His eyes moved from the place card to me, sitting there calm and composed in my midnight blue gown. Sophia? His voice came out strangled, disbelieving. You're Sophia Torres. Maria's head whipped around so fast I heard her jewelry rattle. She saw me. Really saw me. Maybe for the first time in years. Her mouth fell open in a perfect O of shock. Hello, Senator Brennan? I said, my voice steady and professional. Maria, so glad you could join us tonight. You? Maria's voice was barely a whisper. You run this? I founded it actually. 12 years ago. I gestured to the ballroom filled with powerful people. All of them here because of work I'd done, relationships I'd built, lives I'd helped change. Welcome to the Children's Healthcare Advocacy Network Annual Gala. We're hoping to raise over $6 million tonight to support families whose children are fighting life-threatening illnesses. Senator Brennan sank into his chair slowly, still staring at me like I'd materialized from thin air. Maria, he said, his voice tight and strange. Your sister is Sophia Torres. The Sophia Torres. The one who wrote the Medical Debt Relief Act. Who testified before Congress. Who I didn't know, Maria interrupted, her voice rising slightly. We didn't. The lieutenant governor leaned over from her seat beside me, her expression concerned. Sophia? Is everything all right? Perfectly fine, Lieutenant Governor Chen, I assured her with a smile. Just some family catching up. I turned back to Maria, keeping my voice gentle. You're looking well. How have you been? She couldn't form words. Just sat there with her mouth opening and closing like she was drowning. Senator Brennan's expression was shifting from shock to something darker, something that looked like anger mixed with betrayal. Maria, he said slowly, each word measured and careful. You told me your sister worked at a small nonprofit. You specifically said she had a nice little charity job that she was very passionate about. She does. Maria gestured helplessly at the room, at the screens already showing donation totals climbing, at the waitstaff in formal attire moving through tables of some of the most powerful people in the state. I mean, I didn't know it was this, Senator Brennan said, his voice getting louder now, is the most influential children's advocacy organization in the state. Sophia has testified before Congress twice. She's been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Forbes 30 Under 30 Social Entrepreneurs list. He turned to me, and there was something in his eyes that looked like grief. Your family doesn't know, he said quietly. They have no idea what you've built. They never asked. I replied simply. The truth of those 3 words hung in the air between us. Senator Brennan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Excuse me, he said, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. I need a moment. He walked away from the table, pulling out his phone, and I could see him typing furiously, his shoulders rigid with tension. Maria leaned toward me, her voice desperate and low. Sophia, you have to understand we didn't mean to. Maria, I kept my voice gentle but firm, the way I'd learned to speak to difficult donors who needed to be managed without being alienated. Dad texted me this afternoon, told me not to come to the family reunion because your boyfriend was a state senator and my nonprofit work would complicate things. Her face went from red to pale in seconds. He said, I continued quietly, that I would be an embarrassment to you, in front of your impressive boyfriend, the state senator. I paused, letting her absorb that. The same state senator I've been working with for 3 years. The same senator who's here tonight to speak at my gala, at my invitation, as my guest. Oh my God, Maria whispered, dropping her face into her hands. Oh my God, Sophia. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. We didn't know. I know you didn't. I said softly. That's the problem. Stay with me. Because what happens next will show you that sometimes the truth doesn't need to be shouted. Sometimes it speaks for itself. Senator Brennan returned to the table 5 minutes later, his jaw set in a way I'd never seen before. He sat down heavily, picked up his water glass with a hand that shook slightly. I just texted your father, he said, his voice carrying across our section of the table. The lieutenant governor, our board chair, even the donors were listening now, drawn by the tension crackling in the air. Asked him why he didn't mention his daughter Ran Chan. Maria made a small sound of distress. He said, the senator continued, his voice hard as granite. Sophia, she works at that children's charity. Nice work, but nothing major. The silence that followed was absolute. I replied, he said, looking at Maria now, that I was currently at Chan's annual gala, that his daughter Sophia was sitting next to me, that I was about to give a keynote speech praising her extraordinary leadership. He paused, and I could see him struggling to contain his anger. Your father said, there must be some mistake. Sophia couldn't possibly be important enough to host an event like this. Maria was crying now, silent tears running down her carefully made-up face, leaving tracks in her foundation. Do you know what I told him? Senator Brennan asked, but he wasn't really asking. He was telling. And we all knew it. I told him I've worked with his daughter on 3 major pieces of legislation, that she's one of the most effective advocates I've ever met, that Chan has a $9.4 million operating budget and helps thousands of families every year, that his daughter has done more to improve children's lives in the state than most elected officials manage in an entire career. He took a breath, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter but no less intense. I told him that I was honored to be at her event, and that I was reconsidering my relationship with any family that could be so blind to one of their own. Senator, I said quietly, touching his arm briefly, the program starts in 3 minutes. Perhaps we should, you're right. He cut himself off, visibly pulling himself back to composure. I apologize. This is your night. I shouldn't have no apology necessary, I assured him. But perhaps we should focus on why we're here. On the children we're here to help. He nodded, reached for his water glass again with a hand that was steadier now. Maria whispered, Sophia, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. We didn't know. I know you didn't. I said, meeting her eyes. That's exactly the problem. The lights dimmed. Our board chair approached a microphone to begin the program, and I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and prepared to do what I'd done for 12 years. The work that mattered, whether anyone was watching or not. Thank you for staying with me through Sophia's journey. If her story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about quiet strength, unseen worth, and the courage to build something that matters. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep building, even when no one is watching, especially then.